We will start this out with a general question that I'll ask each of you to answer. Starting with you is, how did you build the brand you have?
Well, of course, I went over a lot of that in my presentation, but the building it was a combination of pursuing what I wanted to pursue in terms of building a company, and then building a team and sharing ideas, looking out into what the consumers were looking for, looking at the trends in the industry, and trying to match those with what we were passionate about. And ultimately, when we were able to find that combination of stuff we were passionate about that was relevant in the marketplace, our brand started taking shape. So it was really a combination of looking inward at what we wanted to do and looking outward at the market and trying to find where we connected.
So if I'm a potential customer and I had to take, say, 3 words to say, why do I want counterculture, what would those be?
I hope they say pushing potential, but really it's quality, the support, and the commitment we have to support them and be partners with them, and they're proud of how we source our coffee and how we conduct our business. So that's a lot more than 3 words, but I think they would look at quality, support, and partnership.
Okay. Bagersh, can you help us out here?
Your question about the how did we build the brand?
Yes.
Actually, we have several brands. There is my company brand, which actually is the name of my great-great-grandfather, that I didn't work on. It just happened. So as we had a company that was in his name, with time we realized that it stood for something, and that we as a family were responsible for maintaining the integrity of that name. So even without thinking about branding, we realized it was a brand. And then after that, we started working to make sure that we protected the brand. So it was not about marketing or anything like that, but it was more of a brand that we felt it stood for something. And maybe in one word, if you asked my brothers, all my brothers, what that meant, I think all of us would say integrity. So that would be however, there are the coffee brands that we have worked on, and those really were related more to the coffee qualities and what we saw in that coffee. So it was not an all-encompassing brand like our company, which is our family, our grandfather's brand.
Right. So you were also branding then certain regions or certain coffee mills from which you were producing the coffee.
Correct. Yes.
As well.
Yes.
And some of those have remained successful and developed, because I remember Joseph bringing up, and perhaps you as well, where you found the names actually being stolen.
Yes.
And used by others.
Yes. So I think that was part of a learning process. Sometimes you say, too bad, I missed that brand. I didn't do the right steps to protect it, or
right.
And if there is a way to fix it, then I would. But if there isn't, then there should be the next brand to work on, but with the lessons learned of how to handle and how to preserve those brands.
So do you drop that brand that got stolen or duplicated?
Well, it's a tough one, because it's a dear brand. It's close to me, and so I think I'll still work on it. I'll still work on it and see, because it will always be connected. So if I let it go, it will sort of have a loose connection, which is untidy. So how do you cut it off completely? So you say it doesn't belong to me, or you say no, it's mine, and I'll preserve it, and this is what it stands for.
Right. Jason, can I?
Sure. For me, to protecting or build up the branding is to build the reputation. Without reputation, all branding was not existing. So I give you example like Zzz Cafe. Okay, Zzz is my name. My name is Jason Wang. So if something fair, it's like I fair. So I work very hard to protect the name of Zzz Cafe because I want to protect my reputation. So we're a service company. So at the beginning, I was thinking about what customer needed. And I found out that the individual customer really needs something like big multinational company already have. For example, design. They want to know how to design their cafe in terms of the operation bar, not the decoration. They have no R&D, so they're having a problem with their roasting profile. They have the problem with their brewing strategy. They're also having a problem of their summer menu or winter menu. Like right now, the winter menu is very important today. Also, they need to have a high-skill training, which is they are not, available. Then they need service. Let's talk about service. When company only has 3 people, I told the service manager, say, let's set a goal. He said, what's the goal? I said, the goal is 3 ring, pick up the call. 30 minutes arrive, 90% solve the problem at the first trip. So he said, I can do it today in Shanghai, but what happened in the future? I said, when that happens in the future, then we just grow, and we grow together. And today I can make it for 36 cities, for more than 10,000 coffee machines. So when you set a goal, and you make it, and you protect it, and your brand is there. So how can be sure that we are success? Is you just looking for your competitor. If your competitor grow, the way you grow means you are success. So you have a lot of people chasing you, and you have to grow more and learn more in order to be a leader. So the whole industry is healthy because of this. So back to what I'm saying, that I think branding need to protect, and protect by reputation.
Yes. For me, I had a very, very special asset in building my brand. That's very unique. Of course, as I explained in my presentation, we're trying to build values into our brands, but to translate that into communication and design is not something that I'm good at. So I was very lucky that the first person to come into my company and work for me, Steve Holt, he's actually sitting right here in the middle, right up front, taking pictures. But he really shared my values very early on, and especially with an evolving brand, if you're not in touch with someone who really gets it, and you can say, I want to make something that says this, and Steve immediately from very early years could just turn that into reality. I'd picture something in my mind, and that image or communication or message is very readily made. So I think one critical aspect to building a developing brand is to be in touch with someone or some firm that can in real time adapt with your brand, adapt with your communication. And I had the luxury since the very beginning of having Steve with me, so that was very critical. Maintaining the values inside of the brand without somebody like him is impossible.
In a word, no. But I think what a brand is to me is all about having a unique point of view. And SCAA being a collection of companies, of course, each one being in business to have a unique point of view means that we're constantly working with a group, within a group that's the very epitome of diversity. And so I do think that belonging to something like the SCAA, or if you SCA member or whatever, can be a part of that. I think that for what we stand for is what we stand for, our mission is to recognize, develop, and promote specialty coffee. And if your business includes wanting to do that, we hope that you'll be a part of what we do. But as far as training in terms of like brand development or something like that, it wouldn't necessarily be part of our core work.
Well, I think I sort of chronicled my walk down this path towards appreciating just how important your core values are. And one thing that I focus on now, and that I'm most scared of, I think is the biggest risk as we grow, is losing that culture, losing those core values. We now have 80 people spread around the United States, and that's a big group to try to get on the same page. And to me, that's our biggest challenge. I think the business is there, and certainly there are going to be other challenges along the way, dealing with consumers, dealing with markets, dealing with competitors. But to me, scaling to that size is going to require scaling the way we scale our internal culture. And so the focus on that, it went from realizing that we need to really work on an internal culture to realizing how important it is, and now how do we scale that? So to me, that's the biggest challenge of our brand, because ultimately our brand is a reflection of us, of who we are, of individuals. And how do we preserve that when we start bringing in people from different parts of the country, now different parts of the world, different backgrounds of expertise, and have them unified in a way where we're all unique individuals, but we're connected with this common culture. So to me, that's the biggest challenge of scaling. Within the context of our vision statement, can we get there and preserve the culture? So that's something that I think about a lot, and is really where I'm spending a majority of my time.
Sorry. Would you say you have a brand also regarding farmers who actually produce the coffee for you? Is there a branding in that sense?
Well, in the past, we actually have branded specific farms, specific farmers for specific products. I think that part of the message we communicate is that relationship we have with farmers. Sometimes, as I said, we'll communicate the specifics of that relationship, the specific name of the farmer, the growing region, or the growing group. So it's part of the overall brand. It's part of the story, that relationship we have, how we develop it, how we work closely with them, and ultimately how the interaction between the two of us can result in better coffee, long-term viability of, hopefully long-term viability of the farmer's farm, the product itself. So we don't categorize that as a brand, but we certainly talk about it as the overall, as part of the overall brand of counterculture coffee.
Right. Are there any farms that you've worked with which have become more successful than others, that have stood out, that are becoming a brand in themselves?
Certainly Aida Batley and her different experiments, and Finca Mauritania was one that comes to mind. Working with Bagersh back with Edito and others. And I think that what we're trying to do is really tell the story of individual farmers more and more. And we do see an interest year after year of certain coffees from certain growing regions. But we're trying to not say, okay, this one area is the best forever. Instead, we want to bring the stories of lots of different farmers, of lots of different groups, and bring those to the forefront. So while one might think, let's build one brand and really capitalize on that, I think that what's better is let's build a system where we're working with different farmers, and let's talk about that and how we can work together with various farmers, giving them the spotlight, but work with various farmers to come up with extraordinary coffee.
Bagersh, have you found one particular mill or area gaining more success than another in your brands, and would you have an idea as to why that was the case?
Yes, I think what we had discussed earlier of whether a region or a village or a cooperative represents a certain coffee type, and if that coffee type inherently is of an extremely high quality, then that name automatically starts getting brand, let's say, getting brand value. So we've seen different parts of ㆍType, not necessarily with our mills, but also with cooperatives, where the names of the cooperatives have become quite famous. So it's under the, let's say, the regional brand of ㆍType, for example, within Ethiopia, but certain mills have risen, or certain cooperatives have risen to a much higher quality, higher recognition. Whether now that that has become a brand, but whether it's being handled as a brand is the question. And the question that you asked also, whether in origin countries, if the branding is done right, then the value will come out. And therefore, if these regions or villages are handled as a brand, then I think they have their own. So yes, there are areas that have become higher in terms of brand value, even though it's not recognized as a brand.
Right. So, and you see that, are they actually able to get more remuneration because of that?
Yes. Yes, you can see on, let's say, on equal platforms, if there is either a taste of harvest competition, or then those coffees typically do get a higher price, even being equal in scoring coffees with other. So that brand value does give some additional.
Right. Jason, are you working with several providers of coffee besides Joseph? And is that a wide diversity of qualities of coffee? How much does the product itself make up your brand as opposed to the service that you so clearly stated?
Coffee itself, although we get involved quite earlier, but it's never become a majority sales in the company at the last, in the past. But the last few years, that because of the specialty coffee, so we put more focus on the green bean. We used to be buying coffee, but we only buying from like a multinational company from Japan, because this way we don't need to really get involved of the quality control and the plantation. So we believe there's the company that have been in the market for many, many years, they can be able to bring us a good commercial coffee, which is true, because coffee quality is always there, price is always stable, and we are very happy and customer is happy. But now the time changed. When servo coffee coming, we need to know more about plantation, the process, and also some of the special flavor. So we decide, instead of go meet with many people, so we just choose the one of the best, which is currently our partner, and should be a long-term partner, is 90 Plus. However, that when we started 90 Plus, we started 90 Plus and Level Up. We are the first company bring the Level Up coffee, because I truly believe the real potential is the Level Up. It's not 90 Plus. So what we did is that we're using our existing commercial coffee and put 20 to 30% Level Up to bring the coffee quality into next level. And so far, it's very success. Some customers use 20%, some customers use 30%, some customers even using 60% now. So those are the things is happening that gradually coffee quality getting up. And we have a new project with Joseph. I don't know, we want to talk, Joseph want to talk right now, and that's the next year project. And next year project, we're going to make it even more interesting, because we do a reverse engineer. That means we look at the coffee machines, and each coffee machine has the weakness. They also has a sweetness. So we want to know what is the weakness of this coffee machine. Is that some coffee machine, they have a fast extraction time. That means the max they can do is 18 seconds. More than 18 seconds, you have all bitterness. So you have to extract the coffee below 18 seconds. So we have to roast coffee to cover that problem. But a lot of time, even you want to roast a special way, it doesn't work. You have to go to process and making a special processed coffee in order to keep this coffee machine perform a better quality. So in this case, I cannot working with 100 of the plantation. I have to work with one company, and they can make that happen to me. And so far, the process is doing very, very well right now, and then much faster than what we think, because this is not only a process, but also extraction, but also the programming, the standardization. This is a huge project, and also we have a big customer base, and they're willing to working with us. Some of the shop has 2,000 outlets. Some of the shop have 1,000 outlets. They say, okay, once you're done, we want to try. So this is the reason we cannot working with a lot of people, although those are the good people. But, you know, I think one day everybody will go to this direction, and that's what I want to see. Thank you.
Joseph, when you developed these special, it was very interesting to hear how you first started, very similar to Bagersh, if I understand correctly, using names of regions or such, and then backing away from that because you too saw your name, those names ripped off or being duplicated with much lower quality. So you switched over to names that were not specific to any farms or any mills of any kind. So does this seemingly very successful branding, I mean, Nikisi became famous everywhere. Yes. Does that spill over or benefit the farmers who now are at least more in the background, maybe?
Well, let me give you a very direct example of benefit to a farmer. Our very own farm, 90 Plus Geisha Estates, we apply the same principles to. So we don't sell Panama Geisha, we don't sell 90 Plus Geisha Estates coffee, actually. We sell Percy, Licello, Juliet, those are taste profiles. And I know that if I really needed to, we didn't have enough volume on our own farm to meet demand for Percy, I could buy Geisha cherry from surrounding farms and similar terroir, and I could still fulfill that taste for people. And as Jason was alluding to, matching taste with machine with program is critically important. On the small scale, for micro lots, it might not be as important as on the level up side, the part of our business, which is making a consistent taste, a consistent quality that goes into a chain account program so that they don't have to keep switching from year to year. A brand of a taste can actually become something that volume purveyance of coffee can depend on. So as a producer, of course the benefit can be there if you can provide a consistent ingredient into a big purveyance in the market.
So, dealing with Ethiopia, I would imagine that to have these very high-priced coffees that you were selling, you're having to invest more in terms of sorting, choosing, picking the coffees, and so on. Does this mean that you're having to pay a lot more? I mean,
absolutely. I mean, there are two ways that we do work in Ethiopia. One we call co-production. It's where we set up on someone else's mill, and we have them basically allow us to give them a very high-priced export contract, guaranteed regardless of what happens with the cherry. And then we have to get the cherry that we want by any means necessary, ask them to pay the prices to the farmers that we need. We always have the highest prices paid to the farmers who are selling to the mill. Then we'll invest in our own infrastructure at the mill, our own staff. So we always are paying, whether it's exporter or all the way through to the small farmer who's providing cherry. We're incentivizing for quality, absolutely. So we have co-production in Ethiopia, but now with these new farms that the Bagersh family has put together, now we still will be able to buy cherry and do production from outgrowers that provide to those farms. But in these cases, these are really, we're becoming the farmer too, although we're not, these aren't, so, and we relate to everyone. And so in our company, we have those ideals where we care about everybody enough that even if we could pay a lower price, we wouldn't. In our case, it does flow down to everybody involved.
Right. I can't help but think, with the names that you've chosen and the way you're doing it, I can't help but think of perfumes or something like that.
Nekise, the original taste came from shakiso, so it was berry from shakiso. It was a local word, a couple of local words put together, and that's so every profile has a significance, from its original taste.
Right. Only got about 4 minutes left. Is there a question period after this? Do we know? No. Okay. Ellie, care to add anything into these questions or discussion? I'm not sure quite what to ask you because you're, part of the SCAA as opposed to dealing with a specific product.
Well, I mean, I think this is just, I was very inspired by every single one of the presentations today. I think that it makes me really proud to be part of this community, and being connected through the SCAA, I think is just, I feel, really humbled by it. I think that you all deserve a lot of compliments for the thoughtfulness that you put into this, and also just, I think that from the beginning to the end today, we were able to tell a story, and it was great to be a part of that, I think.
I think I'll just add a few comments of my own, because I'm in the business as well. And I would certainly say that for a cafe, or several location is absolutely critical. The more you can have a location in an area which involves more diversity of people, people with means, but also who have a certain intellect, curiosity and such, all of these things make you more visible. Having a unique product or a unique direction, which was brought up here, by others earlier. A unique point of view was brought up. That's a critical piece as well, along with service that has been mentioned. Also, if you open up more than one or so, concentrating them in specific areas so that one supports the other, so that you have concentration, I think, is very important as well. And I would say that's one of the secrets to Starbucks' success back in the late 80s and 90s was they didn't do what other coffee chains at the time did. They didn't go out to suburbs and then in the city and spread out. They concentrated in the downtown areas, and they put one Starbucks next to another, so the business person coming from some other city would walk in there, into Seattle, and they could not help but run into one Starbucks after another. It's the repetition and being visually there at all points that really helped develop the brand. So very soon, even before, by the time Chicago was in only two cities, Seattle and Chicago, it was already a national brand before stepping out anywhere else. They didn't go to suburbs. It was all downtown development in very small, concentrated areas. So I just wanted to add that in terms of the retail piece. We're hitting the last 60 seconds here. I'm wondering if there are any questions that the audience might have for one of the panelists here. Yes. Well, we'll go to both. So, go ahead.
If you're doing well and you're making money, then perhaps you're not real to the passion of specialty coffee. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on this. I don't know who to present it to.
Well, that's a very good question, given what happened right now with Stumptown and Intelligentsia as well. There, I'm going to throw that ball straight at you.
Well, it's always an interesting phenomenon. You know, the late Yogi Berra had a great saying of no one goes to Coney Island anymore because it's too crowded. And I think that there's a stage in every business that you do continue to add and you continue to build and you run the risk of alienating some people. I think there's a natural tendency of people to want something special, and all of a sudden when more people have it, it can feel that it's not that special anymore. And when you ask the question about scaling, I think that that's the part of scaling and the culture, preserving the culture, that is important to keep thinking about. I mean, I think one example of the ultimate cool brand that's probably, if not the most valuable, the second most valuable brand in the world is Apple. And there's a cult following for Apple. So you can scale, but I think that when you scale, you have to be true to your values, produce, not compromise on the quality of your product, and not change who you are. And if you can do that, then even if you alienate people along the way, they'll realize, hey, you know what? It's still the great company that I knew when they were smaller. And hopefully they'll see that other people enjoying it's not a bad thing.
Anyone else care to comment on this?
Well, I mean, I'll just say, of course, people compare it to bands and music, and when you like a band and it gets popular, now you don't like them anymore because everyone does. It's just, you know, as a representative of SCAA, I have such a visceral reaction to that sentiment that just, I want our members to succeed. I always want our members to succeed, whatever it means for them, and I think that it can be very short-sighted to associate not growing with success. We had the RICO Symposium that's going on in Auckland, New Zealand right now. I was a speaker at the one 4 years ago or whatever. And there was a debate session that they had debating about whether New Zealand has too many small roasters or not enough small roasters, and it was a point-counterpoint kind of debate session. And there was a line that one of the participants said that really stuck with me, which was, you know, a micro roaster is just a failed large roaster. It was, you know, partly to get a reaction from the audience. But I also think, I mean, there's lots of different ways to look at it. And, of course, you know, there's a lot of different attributes to being cool, but there's certainly more to business success than that, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I think, you know, it goes back to that concept of having a point of view and having something unique to offer. And if it's scalable and successful, why is, you know, how could there possibly be something wrong with that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think they will, companies like the ones you mentioned will shed some of their customers, but the access they now have to resources, to more coffees on a much wider scale and such, and their ability to popularize their product will more than make up for that. So, you know, and of course it does represent an opportunity for small micro roasters to nibble at the edges of these companies.
Just one last thought along those lines. To follow up on what Ellie said, I think that one of the realities for counterculture as we've continued to grow is that we're able to do what we do, but do it better, to reinvest into, with our farmer partners, to have a higher focus. We have the means now to experiment in different ways with producers and experiment in different ways with education to do what we're doing across the board, but on a higher level. And I think that's a very good thing.
Exactly. Also the ability to continue making news with those resources. I don't think that you're going to hear Stumptown or Intelligentsia quiet down at all. On the contrary, their activity will rapidly soften and make disappear objections people may have and replace that with talk about what they're doing going forward. So I think it's strictly temporary. I think you had a question? Jason.
I really don't know. I know. I don't know. I say I don't know. Because I think all the change is a good change. So whatever happened in the company is really depend on the new leaders and the people working in the company. How do they communicate with the customer in the past and in the future?
That's right.
So some, when they have this change, and they will grow like sky high. Some of them maybe disappear. So I really don't know what's going to be happen. All I know is listen to customer very carefully. Listen to employee very carefully. Listen to yourself very carefully. This is all I can think because I don't have experience. Thank you.
Excellent answer, I think. I'm being asked to wrap it up. Time has ended, but at least some of the words that have been stated here, just as a quick review, is listen. This was just stated very well by Jason. Core values, unique point of view, reputation and reliability, service, fulfilling customers' expectations and going beyond them, and consistency. And I'm sure I missed a bunch of other points, but I hope that wraps some of it up.
Thank you.
And I want to thank the panel very much for being here and answering these questions. And thank you very much for being here and listening to us.
Thank you so much.